All right, I am super excited to do this lesson with you guys. This is something that's going to be absolutely awesome, so stick with it. What we're going to do today is we're going to analyze David Gilmour's solo on the song Mother. We're going to see how he wrote it, what it is, what it consists of, taking that information, then learning how to improvise over a solo, and seeing that when you improvise, you can kind of start to sound like you want to, or sound like Gilmour in your approach. And then we're going to take that information as well, and we're going to do an acoustic chord melody version of the solo, in case there are any of you out there who are singing the song by yourself on the guitar and want to put the solo in, but you don't want to have the bottom drop out. So we'll learn how to play the chords and the solo at the same time in an arrangement, and all of it coming from this analysis. So stick with it. Here we go. David Gilmour, in the mind of Gilmour, for Mother. All right, so the one thing we are not going to do is we're not going to learn the solo by tab. I'm not going to sit here and play the whole solo for you. I'm going to analyze it for you. Don't worry, there's plenty of videos on YouTube on how to play the solo and plenty of tabs. But if you're watching this video, you know how the solo goes. So what we need to do to analyze this is, the first thing we're going to do is pretend that we have a guitar that is this big from the 12th fret to the 15th fret. We're just going to play right here. So what I did is I went through the solo and I transferred every note that goes everywhere into this little box, and you'll see why in a couple of seconds. So we have these four frets, 12, 13, 14, 15. We're going to pretend we're kind of like playing it on a baby instrument, kind of like a piano. We're also going to not bend into anything. We're going to look at the actual notes that we're hearing, okay? We'll analyze that stuff in a couple seconds. So if we do that, what I'm going to do is bring up on the screen, the tablature of what I'm playing, okay? So this is the solo as if we played it on a toy piano guitar combo. All right, here we go. All right, now, you can tell that's not exactly the solo. It's like we're playing it on a xylophone type of thing, all right? And the reason that we're doing that is we want to understand what's happening. And if we can put everything into one place and see the guitar neck for what it is and look at music for what it is, which is the master music formula, which is music equals scales and or chord tones happening over chords plus the human element, that human element being slides, tempo, rhythm, any sort of, element we put into our playing to make it sound original, all right? So let's look at what's happening. This chord progression it's a 1, 4, and 5 in G. It's G, C, and D. We have G, C, G, C, G, C, D, C, G. That is the chord progression. So let's take a look at what's happening here. Now, the first couple notes, okay? What is that? Well, when we look at the chords that are being played right here, we start to see this pattern of David Gilmour and how the solo came about. The first chord is a G. If I were to light up where G chord is right here, it's right here. It's the G-shaped G chord of the cage chord system. All right, and the notes of all the chords, of all that chord, all the chord tones, from thick to thin, 15, 14, 12, 12, 12, 15, 15. Now, when we look at the tabs of the modified guitar solo, we have 12, 15. Yes, I know in the solo he bends the 13, but he bends it up to the 13. Cool. So we have two chord tones happening over the G chord. Now we have this, then comes, and we look, and we have this 13, 12, 13. This 13 is part of a C chord. The fret numbers being 15, 14, 12, 13, 12. That note, which is a C, happens exactly when that C chord change happens. So we have G chord tones. Then we have this. Now if we look, 14, 13, 14. That 14 is a chord tone in the C chord. So you're telling me that David Gilmour, I love Pink Floyd, but I never got to the superfan status. I never read anything about how he wrote this solo. I'm sure many of you know. I don't know whether he hummed it. I don't know whether he played multiple solos in the studio and they matched it together. I don't know if he wrote the whole solo in one sitting, but the end result is chord tones. Chord tone, chord tone, chord tone. All right, we're going to keep on going. Then we have, these are the same chord tones in a C. We have a C chord, and then we hit this 12 and this 12 on a G chord. These are notes of a G chord. So I'm telling you that we're not using a scale here. We are using a scale to kind of like move towards the chord tones, but these notes that make you go, oh my gosh, this is awesome, they are chord tones. They are arpeggios of the chord that's happening. Think of that master music formula. G chord, C chord, G chord, and then we're back on G chord, back to a C now. Look at that, that's a C. Boom, that's the C. That's a note of the C chord. Now we go back to a G chord. Look, all those notes are in the G chord. Back to a C chord. Now it's very obvious when we get here, okay? D chord, he goes. That's a D chord. Moves down to the C chord. And then we come off the C chord into a G chord. All these notes are a G chord. So if we take that tab, now look at the tab, and now boom, we're gonna highlight all the chord tones that are in this solo. And you look, there are a lot of orange reddish notes compared to black notes now. Every orange reddish note is a chord tone of the chord that is being played underneath David Gilmour. It is the chord progression. All right. So when we look at that tab now, okay? I'm going to look at my paper so I can do this with you. We have the first G chord. That 12 and 15 are literal chord tones. 13, 12, and then we have a C chord, that 13 and 14 that follows. And the 14, 13, 14, 13, all chord tones, all belong to the C chord. G chord comes, okay? Now we have 12, 12, 15, 4. Those 12s and that, 15, 14. Those 12s and that 14 belong to the G chord. Not just being like, this is what we're playing over the G chord. They are G chord notes. They are arpeggios. Back to a C chord. We're still on the top line here. 15 is a chord tone. 12, 15 is a chord tone. On the second line, 12, 12 is a chord tone. All right, then we have another 12, then the G chord comes. 12th fret of the B string is a G chord tone. Another chord tone, 14, 12, another chord tone, changes to a C, 13, 14, 13, 14, those 13s, the 13 and the two 14s are chord tones. Now we have a D chord, it is so obvious, right? 15, 14, 15, those are all chord tones. Down to a C chord, 13, 12, 13. Those are all chord tones. And then we have this little dance, 13, 12, 13, 12, and those 13s are still belonging to the C, and then it comes down a G arpeggio, 12, 12, 12, 12 are chord tones, 15, 14 is a chord tone, and the final 15. Now, welcome back. Now, if you're like, whoa, that was a lot of numbers, I am telling you, learning the fret numbers associated with the chords from nut to bridge is your friend. I have a video on it right here. It has, I think, over 100,000 views because people are going, oh, okay, this makes sense. So, yes, I know the note names. Yes, I know the intervals when I'm playing, but when I'm looking at something and analyzing something, the fret numbers are just as telling. You know, look at that D chord, 14, 15, 14. Whenever I see that, I know it's a D chord. Whenever I see this, 12, 13, 12, I know it's a C chord. So, just what I'm trying to say is, we looked at the solo, okay? We played the solo like it was in the xylophone, and we go, oh, okay, this is like, I don't know, 80% chord tones. What does that mean to us? Well, it means that when we start to improvise, we want to take a look at what chord tones are available to us, and we also want to take a look at what Gilmour is doing, that human element that I talked about so that we can throw that stuff into our solo. So what I'm going to do here is, this is the end of part one, just proving to you that this is not really scale-based, it is heavy arpeggio-based. Part two will come up where we're talking about how to improvise over this, just in case you want to improvise and see what it's like. And then part three, of course, the chord melody. So stay tuned, and we'll continue. All right. So we hopefully have proved to you that this solo is chord tones. Whether or not he hummed it, whether or not he figured it out, whether or not pieces of solos put together, who knows? Maybe some people out there. But the idea is chord tones. Now, I mentioned that master music equation where music equals scales and chord tones happening over chords plus the human element. And now we need to study what David Gilmour's human element is. First, we have a nice slow tempo, around 65, 70 BPM, I believe. All right, that adds to the soulfulness. Anytime with a slow tempo, you can be a little bit more soulful because the song just kind of drags along. Not drags, but you know what I'm saying. Number two, bending. You notice the very first thing he does in the real solo, I'm going to put on some distortion, is he bends this guy, the C, up to a D. And that right there, I have a video somewhere about sounding soulful, and bends make everything sound soulful. Okay, so the first thing he'll take advantage of is bending, you know, a couple times in different places. The first note's a very good place to do it. Now, again, I'm playing everything up here. Then he does this, and that's very important. I want to look at that. I have a video also about David Gilmour's soloing style, and here it helps prove that theory where what he's doing is he's knocking these doors down. He's running into these doors as they're like the chord changes. He sees the chord change as a door, and he's giving a little kick and a punch through them. So what I mean by this, like kicking the door down, if you take a look, you have this beginning. And right here we have that little, that's a phrase, 1, 2, 3, that crosses over the 4 of one measure into the 1 of the next measure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, and by the way, interesting fact is this song is in 6/4, 6/8, and the solo switches to 4/4, which is great for us. Okay, so he plays these lines that start at the end of one measure and play through the next measure. You're not hearing David Gilmour go like this, like. That was me hitting the C on the C right there. He plays through it. All right, so that's a human element. We have bending, and we have playing through the 4th beat of a measure into the 1st beat of a measure for the chord tones. Having something, a little preamble, a little prefix on your line before you get to your goal. Another real, human element is the use of arpeggios, pretty much. Using arpeggios to really bring the solo to life, because those arpeggios are where it binds with the music. The last thing I will say, he also uses a lot of suspended stuff, and what I mean by that is a G sus4 is a G chord with a C on it. You'll see on the G chords these C's. It's the equivalent of going like over a G chord. And so you'll find these suspendeds, and you can add them really to any one of them. You have to know where they are. Wherever is a root note, 1 fret back is a major third, and then 1 fret in front of that major third is the 4. On the G B string where that mismatch is. So we have these improvisational techniques or human elements that David Gilmour does. Bending, knocking through the door, through the measures, suspensions, and arpeggios. And we really want to try and just put together something that's improvised, that's staying on those chord tones, traveling through, in different directions. So I'm going to play I have a backing track. I'm going to embarrass myself in front of you, I'm sure, but I'm going to stay right here. I'm just going to stay right here where we were and improvise a guitar solo. Let's see how it is. Let's see. actually, that wasn't that bad, all right? I try to take my own advice. I'm sure I can heat it a little bit better, but you're seeing that when you think like this, we get a really decent solo based on arpeggios, suspensions, bending, arpeggios. I already said that. And walking through those measures, hitting those doors down with a little 1-2 punch before we get there on those chord changes. Now, the more you practice this, I'm sure a Patreon link will come up somewhere when I say that, the better you'll get at it, okay? And I'm not saying I'm good at it. I have to practice this, but I know that it works. All right, so we analyze the solo. We understand how to improvise over it. And I'm just doing it in one spot. On Patreon, I'm going to learn how to kind of open it up, do more stuff, and take it from there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the chord melody version of the guitar solo. We're going to use all this information, and in case you are playing it by yourself or you want to play it for someone and it's just you and acoustic, you'll be able to put the solo in without dropping the chords out, all right? So stay tuned. Part 3 is coming. So, sorry, I was zoning off there. Here is the chord melody version of the solo, because I'm sure there's a lot of acoustic players who play this song. I don't know what you do for the solo. Maybe you do the chord melody version. So I just want to show you what we're doing. We're going to practice this stuff again on Patreon, so if you're intrigued, go check that out. But let's get down to it. All right, so all I did here is I took the melody that I had up here in the beginning of the video, and I transposed it down 12 frets between open and 3rd fret. Everything's the same. I'm going to play the melody. I'm going to pop the tabs up on the screen so you can see, but let's just check this melody out because I want to show you 2 things, all right? And that's it. Okay, so we have this. We have... Now right here, all right, this 2-2. Really, he goes 2-1-2, but here's the thing. Okay, I'm sure that everyone's going to call me out on this, but I really don't care. I just want to show you like my mentality, which is it's very hard to put this 2-1-2 in a chord melody when you're holding these fingers down. So you have a couple options here. You can go, and then you can do a double 2 like that, or you could do 2-0-2. I'm gonna let you decide which one you want to do. Okay, so it sounds like this, like a. Or now that open D string is part of the G major scale, which is the emulsifier of this whole solo, even though it's chord tones. Sorry, it's hot in this room. So I'm fine with putting the open D in, even though it's really, you know, an E flat type thing. So it's up to you. All right, so we'll get past that. Trust me. Second line. Oh, sorry. All right. I always mess that line up. I always do. All right, so what we do here, if you look, the chords are on top of the tablature, and each chord is what's being played on top of that section. All right, so this is, I used to play like weddings a while ago. I would, have chord melodies, and this is how I mark them all up. I would just make tabs, put the chords down, put what frets the melody are, and put the frets where the chords are. So this is an example of it. So to start off, I make a G chord. I'm gonna make this G chord because it leads to the C better, okay? We might change that, but we have open G, and then the B string, 3rd fret. So I'm moving my pinky over, so, sorry. and I'm strumming up to that 3. Nope. And I'm letting the 3 ring while I'm strumming the thicker end of the chord. So I have the pluck, strumming up the chord, or down the chord, however you want to think about it, to that 3, I'm letting it ring. Now everything's ringing, I get to play this. On that second 1, I'm going to come down with the C chord and strum up to this note. All right, so we have. Now it's up to me if I want to go. I'm going to pluck, strum, or, sorry, do the pull off. Now I'm going to pluck, then to a G. Okay, so that whole kind of thing, there's strings ringing there, and that whole like. All right, so let's play that part. Then we've got 3, 2. Now we're going to play the C chord. Now I come off that C chord for the D string, come right back. So the first line. Sorry. If I can actually play. Don't worry, I'll get it all together sometime. Okay, to the second line, we start off getting to a G chord, and we go D, G, D, B. That open B, we're going to strum kind of a piece of a G chord up that B string. So. And then we're going to play that 1, but that's where the C hits, so we're going to strum the C. Now, it's just like a home stretch. Here we go, D chord, and we kind of rake. In the real solo, you can hear him kind of rake the chord like real. So I'm going to steal that. I'm going to play this little piece of D chord. Then I'm going to come down to 0, 1, 0. All right, so I'm playing the G and B string before I hit that E string. And now we have the home stretch right here. And you can kind of see this is all the same stuff. It's the same tablature, just an octave lower. Excuse me. It's all piece of the chords. It's all in open position. And if you take your time, you can totally get this. Again, the Patreon practice session is going to have everything for this stuff. All right. I really hope you enjoyed this analysis of In the Mind of David Gilmour for the Mother solo, what it really is, how it really plays out, how to improvise, and how to do a chord melody. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Thank you so much for being here on another episode of StichMethod. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.